Oh yes, please. Who needs coffee in the morning when we're serving you the best tea in the city? This one right here. Woo! Coming off his brand new album that he made us wait 3 years for, God Galuva. This is Quest at a Car and it's called Fire in the Ghetto.
I'm gonna keep that one.
What a clean link.
Who needs coffee when you got the best tea in the city?
Woo!
Management, are you listening?
We're gonna turn Tebow's into Tebow Touch. I get it, Tebow Touch. Touch said he was riding around. No, I'll explain myself. I get it when he started Touch Center. He said he was riding around with people's contracts in his boot for like 6 months, hoping to bump into them. If that's the case, we can go to your booth. Let's check it out.
Oh man, Fire in the Ghetto. This song slaps.
Yeah, it slaps.
What does it do to us?
Slaps.
I love this.
I love it.
I love it.
Right? I sound so cool right now. Right? You know, that's the first thing that Ayanda picked me up on. She was like, what did you just say? And we're on bikes, ne? Chatting while we're riding these bikes in Soweto.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, what did you say? I said, no, it slaps. It's like, it's so weird hearing you guys speak this even on air.
It's like the word
It
woke.
is.
Woke doesn't exist anymore.
No, it
Gen
doesn't
Zs
work.
are like, nah, woke doesn't work
No,
anymore
it's
either.
not a real thing.
But it's also about the evolution of those behind the mic. And you can't, language is a big thing when it comes to radio.
Yeah.
It's about, relating to people, about capturing a time in a generation. So use that word as often as you need to, Tibos. And we know how far you can take that word.
Oh, yeah. Especially on Wednesdays.
Exactly.
Your peers will thank you.
Hey, I hope your audience doesn't misunderstand you.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, they get it.
Their kids tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Well, I just hope for Ayanda's sake, because she's got a show at 12. Yeah. Well, her language is going to change. It's going to be mature.
But the thing is...
I don't want to say it's mature. I want to say it's polite. I want to say it's polite because I'm speaking to a general crowd of people. I'm not speaking to my people.
It's going to change.
Yeah,
Come
really.
12 o'clock. We'll be listening.
Yeah.
No, it's like when she left Y to go to 947. I mean, even the English had to switch up a bit. It had to...
I started reading more.
So you and university...
You found out about fiction and non-fiction now.
Yeah. So you and University of Exclusive Books were friends now.
Absolutely. We really were. We really
You probably
were.
have a loyalty card. Yeah.
I do. I'm not going to lie.
Now, you spoke about something of Mo. Bring it up.
You see, the thing about radio is that it's a very unfair medium to on-air personalities. And I say this because we always expect it to be perfect when we're behind the mic. Perfect in the way we deliver our shows, whatever language it is, and also in how we feel on that day. You've always got to be bubbly, excited. And I think it's unfair because radio hosts are people. And over the years, I've realized and I've learned that it's okay to have a bad day before you even get to your show and then talk about it.
You mean like personally, right?
At a personal level.
Yeah.
And, there's a school of thought with some radio purists who will say, well, radio broadcasters should never laugh too much. Or,
Leave it at the door.
Leave everything at the door. Don't bring your emotions on air. But I think the vulnerability that comes with being open with your audience is that which creates a better connection with them.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because we are people and radio is about speaking to people, not at them. Not everybody.
What makes you think radio survives social media?
It's exactly that. Things can happen in the world that are so dreadful and painful that touches you emotionally. And when you switch on
And
that
now you
mic-
must just be bubbly?
No, sometimes tap into that mood. And I think that is the one thing. And I say radio is unfair because it's this expectation that's been created. It's okay. We have fights with our partners. We wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Things go wrong. Our dogs die and, people die in our lives and whatever. You have a fender bender on your way to work. I think it's okay to be open about things that you're going through. But I mean, there's obviously a line because at what point do you then not have a meltdown on air? And we've seen it happen so many times.
Ayanda, has it happened?
I've never had a meltdown on air. I'm very quick to check myself with that. But I think there's certain topics that I stay away from because then I would have a meltdown.
Okay.
Like, I don't talk about JMPD on radio because
Hi. Should we talk about it now?
No, we can.
You are in a
platform.
You are in a company.
I just don't like how they are treating women on the roads when you stop us. I really feel like there's a lot of things that go down there. I mean, it's unnecessary. The intimidation, most importantly, and the rudeness that comes in with "I'm telling you what to do and I want you to do it now." I hate it so much.
Has it happened before your show?
It happens so often. It shakes me up and I get anxious because when I'm frustrated, I don't know how to react. I don't know how to fight back. So I end up crying.
But now let's take it back to exactly what Mo was saying. How were you taught radio? What did they say about your emotions?
Leave it at the door. You had to leave it at the door.
Is that a fair thing?
It's not a fair thing, but now when I think about it, what I do is make my features help me be able to have those conversations, like with office overshare. Before people tell me what's going on or what's frustrating them, I start by saying, okay, so I got stopped by the cops again. I don't know how many times this is going to happen, but look, I smiled, I gave them my license, they checked my license disc, and I was fine. But it's still very frustrating because I was being stopped for a good 30 minutes. Okay, it's your turn. What do you need to get off your chest?
Good. And for a radio practitioner, and depending on who taught you this, we got it from the Germans. I mean, the first cohort at Y were taught by Germans, the Deutsche Welle Institute. They came in to give us a crash course for 2 weeks flat.
In German.
His name was Thomas Ramp. And he taught us what radio is about. And I'm glad they didn't bring the Australians because they also have a different idea of what radio should sound like. And they're one of the best practitioners in the world. But
Yes.
I'm glad
And they got the legal IP documents as well. Don't try and do those features. You'll catch an email.
And they brought people who brought discipline, but not only just discipline, but the fun element of it is in reflect society. But the one thing that also, and being German, and Germans being the way they are, they're like, rather think it through before you bring it on air. So we've always learned that maybe I'm feeling like this today. Let me not talk about it today. Let me process it first. Maybe I'll bring it a day after or even 2 days after.
Sure.
That way, I've got clarity. And because it's not really only about me, it's about, what I'm feeling, if it will resonate with my listener. And if that is the case, then let's bring it up and talk about it on radio. Yes, you're right. I mean, Uncle Tap, you can also join in here.
Well, look. For me, I'm from a little bit of a different school of thought. From the time I got even on campus radio to joining Y 11 years ago, I've never been taught radio by anyone in radio, like by a boss, by a Snoop session or by a pro. I got taught radio by listening to radio. I wanted to be on radio from the time I was like 5-6 years old, listening to the likes of Jeremy Mansfield, listening to Fresh, and then I came across a guy by the name of Chili M, and that changed my whole world. Listening to Chili
Judge Jules
changed my whole world. And I've been shaped and sort of molded by the structures, okay?
Yes.
So that's the radio teaching that I've done. But, what I brought onto air was shaped by listening to it for so many years. And, may he rest in peace. But when Chili passed, I got asked to speak at his memorial service, right? On behalf of Y and the station and the legacy. And I remember just before I went on, Penny Libiani went up and she spoke, right? And it hit me because she was talking about how that group of the original, the 1997 batch of YFM, and she was saying that they were the last of the breastfed. She used that analogy. She said we were breastfed radio. You understand? And everybody else is powdered milk. All the DJs that have come after us, they're on bottled milk, right? But they were the breastfed stuff. And then when I got up there, I kind of addressed that first, and I said, "Look, Penny, yeah, fair enough. You might have been breastfed. When we got on radio, the breast wasn't available, but." But I'd like to believe that myself and a lot of people from my batch of Y, Ayanda, etc.,
have the right
if
formula.
we were bottle fed, then the formula that we were consuming was the Chili M brand, the Tebow's brand, the Fresh brand, the Bob Mabena brand. And I think when you talk about the future of radio, it really is in our hands. If we're on air right now, we either are going to influence it directly by being part of that future of radio, or
by being real.
And by being real, or what we do on air now is shaping a 9-year-old that's listening to radio now, and their style and what they're going to bring, their uniqueness that they're going to bring on air is going to be something that was inspired by us 10 years before on a link that you won't remember 10 years from now. And I think about that every day that I go in.
That's wonderful. Now, let's talk about, and this has been coming up quite a bit and quite a lot actually, And I always say, when somebody speaks about the threat to radio or something they don't like about the current form of radio, it means times are changing. Mo, you represent social media radio. I mean,
I don't even know what that is. I mean, what is social media radio?
I get about Lona Pela, let's the influencers on air.
trenders.
The trenders.
Here's my thinking on this, and this is really how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has the right to determine who should be on radio and who should not.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me is that radio is about people who have something to say, right? And there are many people out there who are, willing to listen to that person. Some, they develop the interest. Some have the interest from off the bat. The only thing is, let's train people before they go on air.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think if a radio station is going to bring someone who's not from a radio background, train them. It could be an actor.
These are those influencers that just sort of land there,
It could be, an influencer. It could be whatever it is. Train them first. Because there are people who are great speakers, who are great communicators, who have fantastic stories, who are great storytellers, that actually should be behind the microphone to deliver the content to people and have some sort of impact, whatever that impact is.
Yeah.
But I do not think that it is fair to say this one doesn't deserve to be on radio. But for heaven's sake, let's train these people, man. Because there is a level of expectation that listeners have. There's what a listener expects, and there's what they're willing to tolerate. And that is where I think there's a bit of a mismatch. That sometimes, yes, I may like that particular influencer. Bringing them on the radio might change my perception because you haven't given them the best footing. Because you haven't trained them.
Yes.
And I think that's where that aspect of it has gone wrong. And I don't blame people who give that sort of feedback. I think it is important feedback. What it tells me is that people care about radio that much.
That much, exactly.
My point here,
The ownership is in the people.
My point is, they always say social media radio. What would social media be like without radio? I think radio is influencing social media more than the other way around. And, we're still this direct medium. You mentioned, Mo, about you an influencer, or maybe something that's happened on social media. Now, Mo brings that person onto their show for the discussion. Nowadays, let's be real. If you see someone is trending on a trends list and you're like, what's the story? You can't even find the story by clicking on it because it's CBD Twitter selling this or selling that. You can't even filter through it. But if something happened on social media, all I see is that tweet that says Flava in the morning or Mo Flava's interviewing this person to talk about it right now. I know if I tune in, I'm going to get the full story and I'm going to understand what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
And try find that full story or context of it online. You won't.
But it's also very rare where you find a radio practitioner, but also a social media influencer. And I think I think maybe you need to expose us to your world in that case.
Please,
because
teach us.
Because honestly speaking, people feel like, and for those who don't even know where and how you came to be behind the microphone, they may think you started on Instagram.
Probably.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually quite true. I never thought about it that way, actually.
We started on BBM.
Yeah. We did. What? Wow. They don't know our statuses.
Mix it.
You didn't even have a profile picture. You were an emoji.
Wow.
I think well, I've always been taught as a young lady, my mom always says presentation is everything. And because I am always on air, people never get to see me. And a lot of the times people think I'm this fat girl that is just living her best life. And I wanted people to also see the other side that I wanted to show them. I am good looking. I do take care of myself. I do gym and I like presenting that as well. But at the same time, I need to also understand that I have other business opportunities that I can use on social media. And that's why I like social media, because it can show off what I want to show off. I can't talk about being pretty. I can't talk about the different types of clothes that I enjoy wearing on radio. It doesn't matter to the listener. What matters to me, I put on social media. What matters to the listener, I put on air.
Oh, and that's powerful. That's powerful. The beautiful distinction there.
Sure. I would also say it's important to bring as much of yourself on air as possible, Ayanda, because the bottom line is that radio is also about interesting people. And when people listen to you, somebody out there is thinking, hey, this guy's interesting. I didn't know that he was this interesting.
Yeah.
Or I didn't know that she was this interesting. So never underestimate the power of talking about yourself and using it in a way that relates to people. And so removing certain aspects of who you are because I don't believe in that. I don't think that's a good thing. And I always, and I would encourage you to do the same. Because I believe, I mean, when you talk about your social media platform and your fashion, you've got such an incredible brand. You know, you look at Ayanda, it's like, wow, it's rock star. You want to put her on a billboard.
Yeah.
You know why?
And not because, it's not about, the looks and objectifying. It's,
Yes.
it's about the energy you bring.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
And I just think we need to find those passions and be able to bring them on air, because you have no idea how much power that stuff has. But one other quick point, and I don't have an answer to this question. Has it been proven anyway? And I know, Tibos, you are very well vested in how radio runs as well, outside of your radio show. Has it been proven that bringing a socialite or a social media influencer, whatever it is, onto a radio show will bring numbers, audience in terms of numbers?
Even how radio is measured, it will be very difficult to do that, because then you are linking two variables which are not connected. Because if radio was really driven by personality than content, right, then we'll be able to measure the personality, and we'll be able to measure the content. But right now, what is measured is content. Because look at the diary. The diary says, how many times are you listening in an hour to which station?
Or even in a 15-minute spell.
Yeah, it doesn't say Uncle Tab, doesn't say Ayanda, doesn't say Mo. It says this time. So you can only measure it over a period of time. So if you measure it, let's say, in a year to year, and having Ayanda being my co-host here has added more, let's say, female listenership or more guys, I can be able to then measure it only over a period of a year. But to then immediately say, maybe on social, we may trend every day, and trending doesn't mean you are
Listening.
popular or you are listening.
At
It
all.
only talks about the only thing which is relevance. So what you're talking about is resonating with almost everybody. That's why they want to add in. Whether they are really switching on to listen, that is still need to be measured, right?
And I think that the link between radio and social media is absolutely critical, because, as I said before, it extends your reach, that somebody may not actually be listening to you.
And are you using it to push or to pull?
Exactly.
Are you pushing content or are you pulling people in? And I think you need to have a dual strategy there.
Yeah.
You use it to say, this is what I was talking about it. If you're not listening, maybe this is your turn to join in and listen. Because I think there's more emotion when people call in and send you a voice note. I think voice notes give us more flavor than social media tweets or comments, right? So if I'm using it to pull, you see, pull, it says, this is what we're talking about, come in. Push is saying, hey, if you're not listening, come in. And that's what it needs to be, a sort of a dual strategy. And that's what you must use it for.
Yeah, but then again, not so much, because also I work on 947. The music that I play on 947 is different from the music I'm playing on the decks. And if I try and merge my presence on radio with my presence on social media, I get where you're going with it, and I understand what you were saying to me before. And I get that. I've been struggling through that, and I don't know who to speak to about it. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm in this spot where I'm trying, but it's just like, it's tricky for me. It really is. So I choose to just separate the two.
I think radio in general needs to, and I'm talking about, different radio stations. I'm not just picking on 947.
It's okay.
I think
I can take it.
pump it with ads and music.
Yeah. Shortest link
And then
ever.
they'll give you an ad-free 30.
Listen, that shortest link is the most solid one, by the way. It's
Have a cup of shut up.
Wow. Listen, if I can just add to that.
I've even lost my trail of thought now.
I think there's a lot of comparisons, Tibos, between social media and radio. But for the longest time, the comparison was always television. Okay, how do we compare radio to TV? Right? And I wrote something down when trying to think of how I see the difference in the two. Right?
Okay.
And for me, TV. I'll give you an example. TV gives everyone an image. Okay, there's an image, and I want this audience that I'm speaking to. Here's the image. The difference between what we do here on radio and what they do on TV is that we provide 1 million different images to 1 million different people that are going to interpret these images the way that they see it on the day.
Yeah.
So there's so many different variables when radio, whereas TV and social media, for example, it's very visual, it's straightforward. We do storytelling, theater of the mind.
Yeah.
For me, when I get on air, it's about connecting to people and helping them see what I see or what I saw through the art of storytelling. So if I just want to tell you about what happened with me in the bottle store over the weekend, and I want to make that relatable to you, remember, every single person listening to that, okay, even you listening in your car right now to this, you might have a picture of what I look like. You've never seen me on social media. You might have an idea of this guy who's talking about, but then the very next person has a completely different idea. And it's that power that radio has, that social media and everything else piggybacks off.
And before we go for a break, how you know you have done it right is when you meet people and they say to you,
yeah, they have no idea.
Yeah. And it's another one from MVP. Drake, hold on, we're going home right here on 959 with T-Boss featuring Mo Flava and Ankle Tap in the building.
There you go.
Shout out one time.
I know the smoothness in this here. Woo!
Hashtag the best tea in the city.
Dope.
You see, Ayanda, if you want to talk more, this is where you need to be.
Yeah, but you...
wow.
Guys,
that was a jab. I
felt it. I didn't feel it because I'm used to it, but
baby.
I love you too. And I think I've actually spoken to Mo before when you were shooting. What's that show that you do on TV?
Oh, Trending SA.
Yes. And we bumped into each other and you were done and we were just chit-chatting and you were asking me how it's going. And at this point in time, I feel like I am that, I don't want to call myself an experiment, but I'm one of the first to cross over from like a Y into, as a female, into like a 947 and still be relevant. And it's because I haven't been trying to be myself over the station. I respect the brand, so I make sure that I
and that's what you must do.
Accommodate the brand with my own brand. So I'm not trying to shine over it.
Well
but
done.
if they're going to say we're giving you 30 seconds to talk or we're giving you 5 minutes to talk, I need to make sure that I can make sense and people remember me or remember my name in that 30 seconds or that 5 minutes. So right now, it's I mean... how do I even explain it? Like being part of the station is beautiful and it's also teaching me to speak to the general audience and understand what the general audience is going through as well. So I appreciate it and I'm still working on it. And one day when I have more time to talk.
Well, you see, I mean...
Will it be on Kaya?
All of us are from
I don't
Y.
know. You know what I mean? Because I always keep getting poached from one place to another.
Hit her again, T-Boss. Ask her again.
Will it be on Kaya?
Will it be on Kaya?
I like being poached from taken from one place to another because that's how my career started. I just keep being dragged from one position to the next.
It's a pity it's June, you know?
Yeah.
If this was 3-4 months earlier...
No. With Auckland Park, not with us. With us, anything goes.
Yeah, please school him.
Private schools.
Private sector.
We have our own terms.
I think it's so interesting because, like, you know, I'm still at Y, and both of, you know, both Flava and MVP, we both spend time together at Y. And, you know, I hear you speak about now moving to 947 and the change and how you've had to evolve as a broadcaster. But I remember when I first joined Y, they asked me, they were like, okay, so how long are you going to stay here for? And I was like, nah, until you tell me to go. Like, I want to stay here for a long time. And the programs manager at the time, he used Oskido as an example, right? He said, okay, you're a youth, this is a youth station, right? We're a youth station, but does that mean that when you turn 33, you must be out the door? Like, you can no longer be relevant to a youth audience.
I love that.
And what I had to do was I was told that, how do you think Oskido is relevant to kids? Oskido is way outside that bracket age-wise, but it's because he reinvents himself every single year. He reinvents himself to be more relevant. Now, what I've got at Y is a changing audience, right? It's a developing audience, and I can keep you. My aim is to say, well, look, I want the kids to make you listen, and then when you've dropped the kids off at school, my aim is for them to now not change the channel, you know? Shift with it. But I've had to reinvent myself and kind of grow. Flava did the same thing.
Yeah, we all do.
And like now, 11 years later, they're like, oh, okay, are you done now? And I'm like, no, I could well just be getting started. But you need to adjust as a broadcaster to the not just the medium, but the audience that you're speaking to.
It's about the audience,
In some ways, you have to grow with them. And in my case, sometimes you have to get younger with them. You can't just keep growing. You got to keep your eye on who you're speaking to and evolve.
And you can't fake it too.
Now they'll pick that up.
Yeah, radio is also very honest, and it's a brutal honesty. There's things you cannot hide, and the thing about, you know, the spoken word is that you can say something, but people can feel a completely different thing to that what you are saying right now. And I agree with that. It's interesting with me because when I left Y, it was more about the fact that there was nothing more I could do there. It was very little about age. It was more about, well, you know, I did the morning, I did the afternoon, I've done this,
the proverbial ceiling,
Sure. There's nothing more to do, and I've always had desires to be on a station like Metro, but it was never something that I forced because I know that we have to grow into certain roles. And even when I got to Metro, I was probably the youngest guy there.
Yeah.
And I had to grow into many things, whether it's how I do my radio show, how I engage with the audience, factoring so many things about, where people are in the country. You're not just talking to people in Gauteng. There's certain words that maybe someone in Stellenbosch or in Paarl, or in Welkom won't relate to that Sowetans know. In fact, they use that word every day.
Yeah.
So it's things like that. But there's also growth. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves as broadcasters that growth is okay. You can grow. Your interests can change as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it's important to see it as growth, Flava, and I think we spoke about this over talent management and what we do with talent. I'll use Flava as an example. You understand? When I was there, I got to see a lot of the people that I looked up to. When I came to Y, Flava was this legend. I mean, he was doing the breakfast show. I walked in, I was like, oh my God, there's Flava.
Yeah.
There's Dineo Ranaka. Oh my God, okay, there's Bonang. When these people grow, right? Often sometimes mistakes that people in management will make is they'll see it as the person leaving, okay, not just growing or moving on to something else for them. But the talent make the bigger mistake is that now it's your opportunity and you might step into. So Flava's now grown, he's moved on to another station, right? And at that moment, that means another young individual at Y is going to get an opportunity to get behind the mic. The problem that talent are making, and it's this younger batch of radio DJs, is you look at that and you go, Flava who? I'm here now. I've arrived. I'm the new Flava. But you need to ask yourself, how did Flava get to the point that he had grown so much to be so comfortable on air to keep this audience? And maybe you shouldn't be looking at what Flava was when he left or replacing what Flava was when he left, but rather say, okay, where was Flava at when he first got this slot? When Flava first stepped in and started growing the show, that's where I need to be. If you want to call yourself the new Flava or whatever, cool, but you're going to start at point 1 where Flava started. Because if Flava leaves Metro tomorrow and someone else gets bumped up, maybe someone from the station, they're going to have to start where he started, not where he left off.
It's going to be very difficult for a lot of young people to actually grow themselves inside radio because of the hype of what being famous is all about and the focus that they have on it all the time.
Do you think podcasting affects that?
Probably, especially those vlogs, the video ones. Of the video ones especially, because now I feel like we might be having this conversation again 5 years later.
Oh, yeah.
As we are. And we might be in different stations or in different positions in our shows, but I don't think young people are as active and as passionate about radio as they're supposed to be if they really want it. And it goes back to, from joining like a YFM, that guidance, that training, that extra TLC for those young people is missing these days. And that's why when I grow up, when maybe I'm in my 40s, I really want to coach radio. I want to teach people radio. I really want to give back and help young people understand. Because every time they're like, listen to my show, what do you think? And I'm like, why are you going around in circles with your words? Why
By that time, I'll probably be station manager of why I'll hire you.
No, station manager is too stressful.
No, I'm saying I'll hire you to come teach.
I would definitely want to come teach, because we need to also leave something behind for the ones that really want it, not the ones that want fame for now.
T-Boss, I don't know what your clock looks like, but...
Yeah, before we go for a break.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
I think it's important for, the next generation of broadcasters to know how radio has been done and understand the rules that dictated that and challenge it. Otherwise, how do you grow if you don't challenge anything? I think it's important for people to say, all right, maybe this is how Flava used to do the show, but I want to challenge everything, because I think if we do it this way, it can actually be much better radio.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, Ayanda, whether or not young people are interested or not interested in radio, but I do agree with you around the fact that maybe it's a guidance thing. And how much are we doing as broadcasters to guide, young people who are keen to get into the medium? I've learned that there's so many things that I was taught as a student in radio school. Yeah. And I've had to challenge some of those theories to say, no, but this doesn't make sense.
Know it first.
Because the game has changed, right?
My people don't think like that. My people don't operate like that. This is what will work better. And the only way we can grow this medium is if we challenge, convention in a productive way, in a way that elevates the quality of what we do. We live in a country where radio is still a massive medium.
Huge.
Commercially.
Continentally as well.
Yes.
And when you look at South Africa, time spent listening is still quite big when you compare it to other parts of the world. So that's a great opportunity.
And will stay that way, in my opinion, for a long time.
It's a great opportunity. So how do we elevate that? How do we make sure that the interest in radio grows? and that we also impart that knowledge to people who are still on the come up.
By opening institutions that have places where young people can be incubated and taught radio and also given the chance to play around with it before you get thrown into a position that you're not ready to handle. And then you start messing up, and then all of a sudden people start giving you bad feedback on social media, and then you start getting depressed and anxious, and then all of a sudden you're sad, and then your life is over.
To close that off, and now I'm putting a challenge out there. I've had that same thought for many years. I'm not trying to like bring Boston down now, right?
Yeah.
But campus radio stations, if they are the cornerstone of broadcasting and radio, why are varsities not seeing this and offering courses as well? Why is there only one place to go and properly study radio? You could have a res. You could all live together. You could have prefects. You could be grown eventually in your third year, get a show, get on air. I think there's a big missed opportunity from South African radio stations, or at least one or two of the campus stations, to actually open this up and become a proper school for radio.
While you say that, let's give props where they are due. Professor Franz Kruger, Voice of Vets, Institute of Advanced Journalism at Vets. They're doing some great work for community radio stations, even for campus radio stations.
Oh, nice.
But of course, we need more.
It's Kaya 959. This is Q-Tip with Vibrant Thing. And don't confuse it with 5 Rand Thing like a lot of us did many years ago. It's just a 5 Rand thing.
Vibrant Thing. Can I just say, many years ago when you were still hosting the afternoon on Y, and there was an opportunity where I was starting off as a DJ, and I always keep saying the story, but it actually like really inspired me. So there was a point where I had to do the mix at 6 p.m. and it's a live mix. You have to DJ live.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it for the first time.
Yo, and your man.
Yo. Now I'm on the decks. I'm getting ready to play. Yo, I was nonsense. Yo, it was the worst set ever.
You know the worst part about that is, right? Most DJs, mixed DJs, will tell you, like, mixing for no crowd. If it's just you mixing around, it's not the same, right?
Chap, it's not about
now
that.
you've got that. Plus, they tell you there is a crowd and there's hundreds of thousands of them. You just can't see them.
No, for me, it was the fact that I had been doing it for the first time. Like I was playing this set for the first time as a DJ.
It's your first time ever DJing?
First time ever
live
DJing.
on radio?
Live? No, not live on radio. I was doing gigs, but I was still basic. I wasn't like there yet.
Let me tell you a story.
Yo.
Was I upset?
You were so upset. Yo, you were so mad. You were so mad. But you didn't say anything, thank goodness.
No.
And then I walked out there and I was like, next time I will never disappoint
Nice guy.
you again.
I'm glad I didn't say anything.
Nice
Yeah.
guy.
I understand. I mean, when you're still starting.
Apparently, Mo can't hide his emotions.
He can't. He can't. He really can't.
Some of us learned how to DJ on vinyl.
Yeah.
Way back. I think I learned in grade 11. I must have been 17 years old.
Yeah.
And there was a boy who lived across the road, John Withers. I'll never forget his name. And he taught me how to DJ because his parents had bought him turntables. And we used to use records.
You learned how to play in the burbs?
Yeah. I mean, where else would I learn anything? Even English. Spend time in the burbs.
Yeah.
You know, wake up in Soweto, find yourself somewhere in Northcliffe.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it all is, just that turntable era, the vinyl era. I mean, that was an incredible era, man.
Yeah.
You know, musically, in terms of DJs, disc jockeys, as some people used to call them, hip hop DJs, and that scratch culture of
that
of
vibrant
the
thing takes me back to mid-morning Saturdays Fedjo, YFM.
Yes.
He'll play this obviously straight from vinyl, scratch live. And this Q-tip thing, oh man, Tribe Called Quest, you name it.
You see, that's my stuff. And even if you go through my hip hop playlist, I've got that kind of stuff. Q-Tip, Talib Kweli, Tribe Called Quest, Little Brother. That is my kind of hip hop. But this hip hop also takes me back to, people like Reddy D and Bionic and Blaze. And I remember the Naked DJ used to play on Y in the evenings on a show called Harambe.
Yeah,
I remember
with
that.
Bad Boy T. Lee and Sansa.
Yeah.
And Naked used to deliver some of the most unbelievable hip hop, this kind of stuff. But eras change. Eras change.
Flava, you know what I loved about that era is a lot of the guys like Naked DJ, C Live, even DJ Spoo to an extent, right? A lot of these DJs that were doing these mix shows back in the day when Y first started, right? They weren't hired by Y or called to say come do a mix. They used to just come and hang around.
Yeah.
If you were a DJ, you were hungry enough for it that you would just show up every day, present another mix, show up with your vinyls, show up with your bag, and that's how they all started playing on the station.
That's the trick about radio.
And I don't think that exists too much anymore.
No. But that's the trick. Every time I get a young one asking me, how do I get on and stay? Because it might be easy to get in, but how do you get in and stay? And my advice has always been, be available.
Don't ask me about how I get on radio at 2 a.m. on a dance floor in the club. After my show, 9:10, be waiting outside the building and then say to me, how do I get on radio? We can have a discussion about it.
It's the funniest thing, and then they block your ear so that you can hear them properly.
Yeah. With their finger. Their finger blocks your ear.
And they want Emo, manjing yena kanjani.
And you're still DJ.
But here's the thing, and I'm glad we're talking about this because I have to mention this. It was in the year 2000. I took a trip to Metro on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday midday. And I was looking for Glenn Lewis because Glenn Lewis had a 12 to 3 p.m. show on Metro.
Yeah.
And it was big. He had mixes. He would play his mid-tempo. Then he would play hip-hop with guest DJs. And then he'd play his house. And on that day, I decided I'm going to go and I want to meet Glenn. I want to ask Glenn how I can get into radio.
Yeah.
Get to the SABC. And guess who I find there? T-Boss. Sitting in for Glenn Lewis on that day.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, hey, where's Glenn?
I got the B team today. What's going on?
But then I was like, you know what? Because I had a lot of admiration for T-Boss, and I loved his show in the morning with Nandipa straight on.
Yeah.
On Metro. It was one of the best breakfast shows.
The morning fix.
Oh, I loved it so much.
It's all good in the morning.
Oh man. And T-Boss came out. I waited for the show to end, and he came out, and I approached him, and I asked him, and I can't remember the exact question, but his answer was, you see all these popular DJs, Rude Boy Paul, DJ Fresh, Dreshni Pillay, they all went and studied.
Oh, Dre.
So go and study radio. Go get some training. Maybe you can check out Boston because that's what those guys did. So T-Boss, I just want to say thank you for that moment.
Oh, man.
And people need to know that you could have easily walked to the parking lot and with your heavy vinyl bag and you're gone, but you didn't. So thank you for that moment. And that was a spark that sent me further into the right direction. So thank you for that.
We thank the gods for that.